Boxing. Beats and rhymes. Boxing. Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
Wanted me to ask you personally why Liam Paro is fighting in Puerto Rico?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. The options in Australia, we weren't able to secure a site deal within the time frame that we had. They work off a very long lead time now. And it got to a point where it was like, I think we should just take care of the mandatory. Richardson Hitchins is a good fight. It's the mandatory challenger. Get it out of the way. You know, I didn't think it was right to do that fight in America.
We should take the mandatory. Just get it out of the way. I don't know. I pick up on things like, you know, Richardson Hitchins is signed to MATCHROOM like Liam Paro is signed to MATCHROOM. What do you mean, get it out of the way? Let's take care of it. Who's it? The fighter who's signed to you? It's almost like he's parring off Richardson Hitchins. Yeah, let's get rid of him and go on to bigger things. Maybe he ain't got much fights left on his contract. Or in Eddie's mind, he's surplus to requirements. Without him even saying it, he's obviously rooting for Liam Paro over Richardson Hitchins. It almost sounds like Richardson's is in the way that's being phrased. Now, maybe it was just a throwaway comment in Saudi Arabia, because he's got the camera in his mug all the time. But if I was Hitchins, yeah, I'd be a little concerned that my promoter is saying, get my fight out the way, like I'm not going to be there, like I haven't got any upside. At the same time, he's in a better position than he was in the PBC, Richardson Hitchins. Like, you know, his inactivity was inexcusable. And Eddie was saying they couldn't get a
site deal within the time frame that we had.
I'm assuming for the Devin Haney fight. If that fight was going ahead, Haney and Paro in Australia, Richardson would have gladly took the step aside money. But yo, he's getting a world title fight, and the poll says 75% are picking Liam Paro to win. And while I am picking Liam Paro, I am telling you now, you are going to see a very good Richardson Hitchins in that ring in December. Now, I probably perform like a bum now I've said that. First time he's been an underdog in his pro career, and he's still only 27. He'll be desperate to make a statement and prove that he's just as good as the other Americans around his age who have got belts like Shakur, Tank, former champions like Devin, Tio, all in a similar demographic. Hitchins is the underdog, make no mistake about that, and it's not going to sit well with him that people are writing him off saying he can't beat Liam Paro. It's not going to sit well with him. He's going to come out wanting to make a statement.
Boxing. Beats and rhymes. Boxing. Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
That is the best fight, Bakole Caballero, that doesn't involve a world title in the heavyweight division. Okay. I think it's phenomenal. I think for any...
So it's a fight that will happen next?
Well, as we've seen, ZHANG didn't want it.
That, my friend, is called shots fired. That boogeyman reputation has taken a hit this week for ZHANG. Ben Shalom confirming what Martin Bakole said. He doesn't want it.
It's on the strength. I really fucking feel they don't want it.
No receipts from Team Zhang, Queensbury. Maybe they're trying to get their alibis right, get their stories straight before they say anything. And no media has asked them about it either. So as far as I'm concerned, drop the sound effect.
Boxing. Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
Junior's rolling around in a Rolls Royce this week. What are your thoughts of him on this card? I know Eddie's
my thoughts of him, I'd love to see him in with Hamza on this card. That's what my thoughts are.
I know we're a little bit on and detached from the whole press conference debacle and everything, and everything's been settled as such, but...
It's nice. Where you got it settled? It's not settled at all.
But for now, just settle.
Now, after Chris's scumbag outburst at the press conference for October the 12th, this Saturday coming, he was coerced, let's say, to take a knee. And listen what he said. I would like to retract my inaccurate statements and offer my apologies to Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, and Callie Sowland. I now wish to focus purely on boxing, preparing for a huge fight in Riyadh next month. Now, the bit we need to concentrate on is Frank Warren. He made a statement. I accept Chris's apology and retraction. I too have said things before and apologized to him. Also, if any criticism of him has upset him in the past, I look forward to seeing him compete on this Riyadh season card. We look ahead to some potentially massive bouts in the future. We assumed after Frank made his statement, he didn't apologize, he had nothing to apologize for. We assumed that he was going to drop the lawsuit. But, as he said there...
It ain't over, motherfucker.
Where you got it settled? It's not settled at all.
But for now, just settle.
Frank Warren behind me sued me for a couple $100,000.
So Chris is already down a couple $100,000 to Frank Warren in lawsuit money, and it looks like it could go up. I haven't got a clue how it will play out in court. I thought when Frank said, I've said things that may have upset Chris, I look forward to seeing him compete at READ season. I would have thought that would have limited what he could do with a lawsuit by him saying that, but
It ain't over, motherfucker.
and I wouldn't be surprised if the Sowlands are looking at a potential lawsuit with Chris.
Calais Howland, had me locked up in a terrible contract for the last few years, squeezing money out of me at every opportunity.
EUBANK said something about Eddie Hearn and Frank Smith, who is actually Chris's brother-in-law. Chris said they were going to allow him to fight Conor Benn, even though Conor tested positive for a banned substance. I don't think Eddie Hearn or Matchroom will go down that road to rake up the EUBANK Conor Benn saga, because it was a fire that took a long time to put out and it's still not quite extinguished yet. Conor still got to get his British license, still got to get back in the ring. I think Eddie Hearn will just let that one go. But Frank the RIT, no, he's not letting it go.
It ain't over, motherfucker.
Boxing. Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
I've heard AJ wants a rematch, and, if he wants it, I want it too. I was a better man on the night, but there's no disrespect on his part. I'm not going to badmouth him or anything. That was a great fight. If we can do it again, it will be even bigger.
Joshua is still a huge fight if it's a rematch. As champion, what is most important to you? The biggest stage for the biggest fights, or is it where you want to collect the belts and get the most accolades?
I'd love to become an undisputed champion and collect all the belts and do it that way, because I feel like I need to fight the best. I need to keep that run going, and I feel like the AJ rematch would be a positive step. Just the way the fight was, it was exciting. It was everything I think the fans wanted to see, and I'll be even better. I'll be even more up for it if we did it again. So, yeah.
Dubois, you can hear by the tone and the intent, he wants the rematch. They talk about a potential Fury and AJ fight, and that's why Hearn was saying, let's wait until Fury and Usyk in December before they decide what to do. But they're both taking L's now. If Fury loses in December, what happens to that fight? What, people still want to see it? Not really. Eddie Hearn ultimately said it's going to be very hard to talk him out of taking the immediate rematch. Looking at the first fight, a rematch, an immediate rematch, circumstances need to be in AJ's favour. He needs Dubois to either overlook him or overlook certain aspects of that rematch. He needs Daniel to take liberties that he might not have took if it wasn't for how easy he found AJ to hit in the first fight. And he must take away Daniel's jab. Must take away Daniel's jab. He cannot be looking at no one outside Ben Davison and Lee Wiley and whoever else is in his training camp to train him. They must not make things complicated. Just work on what they need to work on. Dubois, he believes he'll be a better fighter next time around. I believe that. I believe he will be. He's made steady improvements from the Miller fight to Filip Bogovic to Anthony Joshua. That cannot be denied. He's only 27. I was rooting for Anthony Joshua to win, and I thought he would win. The only nagging doubt I had in my head was nothing to do with boxing at all, in terms of what happens in the ring. I did know all week that they were bringing Daniel out first, media days, open workout, weigh-in, and into the ring, like he was the challenger. And I kept thinking of Larry Holmes versus Jerry Cooney. This time around, I don't want to see AJ coming out last, but they were looking ahead to AJ versus Fury, or a potential rematch between Usyk and AJ, all for undisputed. AJ acknowledges that it's a dangerous fight, but he said he can't box any worse than what he did. For AJ, I want to see improvements. Yeah, I want to see him give it his all. And I'm not talking about heart. I think AJ's proved he's got heart. I want to see some skills, though. I don't want to see Dubois closing the gap on AJ so easy as that. I don't want to see that. I want to see AJ creating space, landing shots. I want to see a more competitive fight. And if AJ does lose, I can say, well, he gave it his best. Yeah? And when I say gave it his best, I don't mean necessarily going out on your shield. I want to see better boxing than that. Like AJ said himself, he can't box no worse than that. He knows how badly he boxed. I just want to see more skills. Win, lose, or draw. But yeah, I'm rooting for AJ to win. And I'll be predicting AJ to win too. And some of that is fan bias. But, what is he, 34, 35 now? Has the chin code been cracked? Can he box better? He says he can't box any worse, but can he box better? These are all things he has to prove. Here's my thing though, right? AJ is not a yo-yo dieter. He keeps in shape. Just the other week when he gave us an update, he said he was going for a run. He said it's important that he still keeps his fitness levels up. He said he's not deflated, despite the blip, he called it. I don't believe AJ has aged overnight as a fighter. I don't believe that. I believe there's more left in the tank. But is there enough to defeat Dubois is the question. Frank Warren wants the Anthony Joshua fight because he's seen the marketing revenue that has been generated around Anthony Joshua's name. Frank Warren wanted to sign Anthony Joshua after the Olympics. There's a lot of people saying that Anthony Joshua doesn't deserve the rematch, and some you can hear are just some nutters. Others have at least the theory on why they don't want to see it, and that's cool. But for Frank Warren, he's looking at it like this. Well, if Daniel can perform like that in the first fight, he's got a great shot at winning a rematch. And Frank's got a few bob in the bank, but regardless of that, he just wants to see that marketing revenue transfer from Joshua to Daniel Dubois. And a second dominating performance against Anthony Joshua might do the trick. Because even though Dubois beat Joshua, he's still not embraced by the British media and public like that. I feel they still look at that fight like Joshua lost more than Dubois beat him. Meaning they don't know too much about Daniel Dubois. They know he knocked out Anthony Joshua. And I'm sure Daniel's got some advertisers behind him, but you can always up the level. And that's what Frank wants to develop. I don't think that's too important to Daniel, but that is important to Frank. So that's why that fight, not the only reason why it's going to happen, but it's a big reason why that fight's going to happen next. Frank has had endorsement-friendly heavyweight champions from this country like Frank Bruno. He's worked with the likes of Mike Tyson, Tyson Fury. There's no fighter outside of Tyson Fury, and Frank wasn't very keen to make Daniel versus Tyson Fury. He said that. There's no fighter who can market Daniel in the UK in terms of an opponent like Anthony Joshua can.
Boxing. Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
Junior's rolling around in a Rolls Royce this week.
You need a various range of characters for boxing to work. You need the rugged blue-collar kids who don't argue with the promoter, who don't have great expectations, prepared to become journeymen if necessary. You need these fighters who don't try and claim their A-side. When you tell them, why don't you create social media profiles so you can become more visible and market yourself better? They're like, nah, I can't be bothered with all that. I just want to fight. Small hall boxing would not be able to survive without that type of fighter. It wouldn't. And they'll always be there. Probably not in the same numbers as they were yesteryear, but they'll always be there. Then you've got Chris Eubank Jr., the son of a British legend. He hasn't had the grind that a lot of small hall fighters have had to get to the next level, British title, European, world, etc. Chris turned up in a Rolls Royce, or a Bentley, as we call them in Blighty, in Saudi Arabia yesterday, and he did his open workout in his Saudi Arabian garment, which he knew was going to catch attention. There was also the outburst the other week about the promoters being scumbags at the presser. Chris is doing a lot of this to get headlines, to get attention, bums on seats, viewership, etc. And he's shameless at this point. He's 35, he knows he hasn't got a lot of fights left. He's an exhibitionist, he's a showman. He's got that from his father. You know, I look at Raven Chapman from High Wycombe and Sky Nicholson from Australia. Two contrasting characters. Raven is saying that Sky Nicholson's confidence is fake because Sky has a high ceiling in terms of her opinion about herself as a boxer and how great she can become. Raven, she's more modest with it, saying she doesn't need to say all that to prove that she's confident. And their personalities are going to show out in the ring as well. Raven is going to be on the front foot, trying to work Sky's body, trying to cut the ring off. Sky is going to be showboating from that southpaw stance, trying to frustrate Raven, if possible, make her look a little foolish. And a lot of people dislike Sky Nicholson, but you can count on a hand how much people you've heard say anything bad about Raven Chapman. Both Sky and Chris are adopting the villain role. Eubank Jr., Sky Nicholson, Raven Chapman are on the undercard of Beterbiev and Bivol, the main event. Eddie Hearn, at the first presser, Beterbiev said about 3 words. I found it quite arrogant, Hearn told TNT Sports. You're flying him over here in his team, and I think it was you or Ade asked him the question, and I think he just went, good. Basically, giving the reporter a monosyllabic answer. Can't be bothered. You're getting an absolute fortune, Hearn said. The entire world Media is here. You owe us a little bit more than that. He said Beterbiev couldn't care less. In a way I respect it, said Hearn, but in a way I think it's disrespectful. Frank Warren agreed with Eddie Hearn, said they do have an obligation to give the media a bit more than what they give them. Then there was the face-off on DAZN that Steve Bunce was hosting. Buncey was trying to probe, is it personal? And they were saying no. Do you like each other? And Beterbiev, he said, I don't like none of my opponents. I don't like him. But there was no menace in the way he said it. And Bivol, he wouldn't commit to saying he disliked him. And then when Buncey asked how important it was to get all 4 straps, Beterbiev said what he said. And Bivol said, it's like a soldier wants to be general. I don't need nothing. And then he was trying to find the words. And Buncey jumped in, distractions? And he went, yeah, distractions. And then he went on to say, this is the worst part of the job for me. I like to train. I like to fight. He doesn't want to do interviews. Doesn't want to do all the media.
You just like to prepare for the fight.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And so in fight week, it's not a good idea to sit you both down. It's okay now.
This is the part of my job, which I don't like, to be honest. I like training. I like fighting.
Yeah. In the press conference, Dev Sani, like Ade Oladipo, they've been told to, be the provocateurs. And Eddie Hearn was the fool guy. Dev put it to Beterbiev that Eddie Hearn said he was arrogant. And that kind of got a rise out of Beterbiev. And Eddie had to be on the defensive for a little bit. They don't like doing media. And they let you know they don't like doing media. 2 fighters from the Eastern Bloc School of Boxing, Russians. They don't like smack talk. The Russians, the Ukrainians, have produced some great professional fighters, but no great smack talkers. So the mainstream press, the mainstream media, they can't get any catchy headlines from watching Bivol or Beterbiev in the press conference. So who did they turn to? They turned to Chris Eubank, who had a sword in the press conference when he was talking to one of the TV presenters. He had a sword, and he said the sword represents the royal family and we're going to war. And, that's the type of stuff that will give them something to write about and give people something to talk about, because that's media. What was Bob Arum saying? That Dmitry Bivol was boring and he's not going to make the Beterbiev fight for Undisputed. But despite all of Beterbiev's knockouts, he's not exactly a pay-per-view draw across there. The fight will be shown on ESPN subscription and the DAZN subscription over there. And you can talk about the time zone, etc., from Saudi Arabia to America, but they're just not big draws over there. And this is where they've had most of their fights, in America. Both of them. Now, the DAZN never released their pay-per-view numbers, but Beterbiev and Bivol is pay-per-view in the UK. The time zone in Saudi Arabia is not far off from the UK, so they're still catching a prime time slot over here. And with our pay-per-view prices, £19.95 for this one, they've probably got a good number of people in the UK and other DAZN subscribers around the world in a similar time zone who at them prices, okay, we'll buy it. No big deal. It's not like coughing up $50, $60 to watch Charles Martin and Luis Ortiz. Nah, man, I ain't buying it. And Riyadh season have got a system in the UK. Ben Shalom, he's got EUBANK, Ben Whittaker, Jack Massey and Fraser Clark. Eddie Hearn, he's got Dmitry Bivol, Jai Opataya, Sky Nicholson, Frank Warren, he's got Fabio Wardley, Raven Chapman. So they've got a mixture of fighters from the 3 networks, and it's pay-per-view on all 3 networks, DAZN, TNT, Sky Sports. So the cumulative pay-per-view buys across 3 networks must be pretty good, like the Dubois AJ event across 3 networks. I wonder how much that did. Bivol said, I don't know how this fight would have happened without Riyadh season. And he's right. How would it have happened without Riyadh season? Because neither of them are marketable. Neither of them in the Western world. Thank the boxing gods for the Saudis. They've saved fighters who are not marketable but very good. They've saved their careers. The marketable fighters can get on the big stage and do their thing. And it's a win-win for fighters. It's a win-win.
Boxing beats and rhymes. Boxing beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
Morel Benavides. My first thoughts were it was an opportune time to announce that fight with Beterbiev fighting Bivol on Saturday. And the amount of traffic the promotion for that is getting. And people are obviously going to be looking at the winner of Benavides Morel as a potential opponent for the winner of Benavides versus Bivol. Benavides probably looked at David Morrell's last fight against Hot Rod and thought he's not all that. And he didn't look all that, let's keep it real. And Benavides fancies the fight more as a result. It is what it is. I think Team Benavides fancy themselves as the A side in the equation, and it was probably more down to them if the fight was going to happen than Team Morrell. But at the same time, Morrell's probably looking at Benavidez' last performance against Wojcik and thinking, yo, can iron him out as well. That's good. That's the type of fight you want, where they both think they can win. Because they both don't think each other is all that. Benavidez was supposed to be fighting Jesse Hart on the undercard of Tank Davis versus Lamont Roach. But we now await a location and a date for Benavidez versus Morrell. Morrell is WBA regular champion and Benavidez is the WBC interim title. I saw one website, I'm not sure how credible they are, who were trying to say it was a 2-belt fight, like some type of unifications. Since when was you able to make unifications with baby belts? It's a PBC thing. It's a good fight. Probably the best fight the PBC have had as a matchup this year. I can't think of any better they've had than that. I'm going to pick a winner. I think David's going to win.
Which one?